Hi there, this is Nicole Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today I have got 3 more bee-themed cards to share with you using really fun stamps and dies from the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero January 2021 release. These are all fun hexagon backgrounds. So I had so much fun with some of the other add-ons that I thought I would go ahead and create a few more cards. I had asked in my last video if you wanted to see some more designs, and the response was pretty much an overwhelming yes. And so I thought I would go ahead and create a few more, as I had started this card but kind of got sidetracked. I wasn't loving the direction the original card had gone. I was going to include it in the first video and I didn't, but after I had finished those projects, I was inspired. So what I decided to do, and where this card kind of centers from, is that love that you see there from the Floral Love 4x6 stamp set that is brand new, and there's coordinating dies, which I've already die cut those out. I did do that off camera, or I can't find the footage from where I did record it when I was working on the other cards. So I'll kind of just talk about how I created those in a bit. But one of the most versatile products from the January 2021 My Monthly Hero release is the new Hexagon Infinity dies. I think these are super. I always love Hero Arts Infinity dies. And so I took one of the sizes of hexagons from this and die cut, I believe, about 5 different colors of cardstock, 3 different yellow mustardy colors, and then kind of a brown color, which is paper bag from Fawn, and then the vanilla malt cream color from Fawn. And I am adhering those to a 4 by 5¼ inch panel of smooth white cardstock, filling in the whole thing, creating my own hexagon background. I really love how this turned out. Super fun technique. You can see there's a few open spaces. What I did was I filled in the center and worked my way out, and then I trimmed off anything hanging off the edge to see what I could use that was left over without having to die cut additional hexagons. I did have to die cut a couple, but really not all that many. And then I was able to fill in. So I'm filling in little areas. My goal was not to have the same color touching each other, and I think I was successful in that. But I love the texture and interest this adds to the background. It turned out even better than I thought it was going to. And I love, love, love this technique. So very easy repetition technique to create a hexagon background. Now, to decorate this card, I want to put the love, the floral love from that stamp set in the center. Add some little bee trails, add a stamped and embossed word, and then pop up those letters in the center of the panel. This ended up being maybe one of my favorite cards I created with this release. I love them all. I can't lie. I was really inspired by this entire release. Great way to start off January, I think, is when you are inspired by product or whatever it might be. So what we're going to do first, before we adhere anything, is I want to stamp some bee trails, and I want to stamp the word you. The great thing about Floral Love is that there are lots of different words that you can combine with love to make different phrases. I opted to do you. One of the reasons being, I was going to do sending love, but sending is a little bit big, and I actually just wanted to stamp right on one of the hexagons in the background, and you fits a lot better. So that's kind of why I picked that one. Another one that would work really well is To My Love should fit. I think you could get Let Love Grow to fit on the hexagons with love. So this isn't the only sentiment that would work if you wanted to do something similar. The other great thing, this card only uses the Infinity dies and then the Floral Love stamp set and dies. So 3 products from the release for this card. I'm not mixing and matching tons of different ones. I have had a couple of requests to use the main kit, and unfortunately, you guys, I did not receive the main kit to work with, so I'm not going to be able to share any projects with that. My focus monthly is on the add-ons, so I won't be doing the main kit, but please visit the Hero Arts blog because there's tons of fantastic inspiration there using the main kit. After I have stamped some bee trails and the word love, or pardon me, the word you with clear embossing ink and heat embossed with white embossing powder, I am ready to add my finishing touches. So first off, I want to add the letters, which I have stamped and embossed on white cardstock with clear embossing ink and heat embossed with white embossing powder. And then all I did was do a little embossed resist with scattered straw, wild honey, mustard seed, and rusty hinge distress inks. Not the oxides, I used distress inks. Then I buffed away that excess ink from the embossed area and I die cut them with the coordinating dies. They are all each individual letters, so you can really space them out when you stamp them. I like to stamp, ink, clean them up, and then die cut, and that's how I did them here. I like that they're all different shades of yellow, orangish. They complement the background, but they stand out on their own. And then I'm popping them up with foam adhesive squares so that they don't blend into the background too much and that they really are more prominent since this is the sentiment for the card. I'm taking a Stardust glitter pin now and adding little touches of glitter to the center of all of the flowers, just kind of a little touch. It is really, I don't know that it shows up very good on camera, but in real life it adds just a tiny touch of sparkle, not over the top, which is what I was going for. Now I am going to stamp the bee from Floral Love, and I'm going to stamp that cutie 5 times. I started with 3, ended up needing to add a couple of more, and I stamped them with Lawn Fawn Jellyfish No Line Coloring Ink. If you watched my last video, which I will link to at the end of this one, I used Lawn Fawn Crunchy Leaf ink, which is great for Copic markers. It is going to leave an outline. It's not going to be a fade away type of no line coloring ink, but it works great if you're just getting your feet wet and you want to still really be able to see the lines. You can tell with the jellyfish ink or other no line inks that you might be using, it's a little bit harder. But I felt since I had done the other one, I really wanted to give true no line coloring a go. And I have to say, I absolutely love how my images for all 3 cards turned out today. We're going to do the no line coloring for all 3 cards. If you don't like no line coloring, you can definitely stamp with a regular outline ink and color them in with your coloring medium of preference. I would love to also see these stamped on a Bristol Smooth cardstock and colored with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I've just really been trying out my Copics lately and no line coloring, trying to improve my technique with that medium since I really feel comfortable with the zigs and no line coloring. We're going to use the die then and die cut these guys multiple times. I love a repetition in card making. So we've got the repetition of our hexagon background, and then we've got our repetition of our bees. I will add an additional bee trail up at the top and add a bee, and then one of the bees is going to be peeking out of the center of the O. Let's move on to our second card where we're going to do a little bit more embossed resist again. This is kind of a take 2 of a card I did several years ago using Honeybee Stamps dies. I will link to that one at the end of the video as well if you want to see a bright and colorful rainbow of something very, very similar. So what I'm going to start out with is taking the Hero Arts Bees and Flowers bold print. stamping this on some smooth white cardstock with the embossing and watermark ink from Hero Arts, heat embossing with white embossing powder, and then we're going to die cut this little guy using 3 different sizes of the Infinity Hexagon dies. I wanted a mix and match of hexagon sizes, something a little more abstract and not quite so perfect, and also a card that has lots of nice white space. This is a gorgeous background as is. I would love to see this background used without cutting it all up, but I just wanted to show how versatile a background can be. And the backgrounds this month, you guys, are so good. All 3 of them are so good. Between my 2 videos, I've used all 3 backgrounds, all 3 bold prints. If you are a background fan, I highly recommend them because I really, really love them. We're going to grab our Infinity dies now, and I'm using 3 of the kind of on the smaller spectrum. I think we're going to grab just 3 different sizes, and then I'm going to die cut a bunch of them. And I originally thought I might stamp a sentiment on one of the hexagons, but ultimately I decided I like the little Bee Trail Hello from Be the Queen stamp set. And I love the more whimsical feel of the bees from this stamp set. So we're actually going to use these guys on the next 2 cards. After I have die cut a bunch of the hexagons, we're going to do Embossed Resist with Rusty Hinge, Wild Honey, Scattered Straw, Mustard Seed, and Brushed Corduroy Distress inks. I am simply applying the inks to my hexagons. I did do an ombre effect on all of them where it's darker kind of at the top and it lightens down near the bottom. And I think it just adds additional interest. You could definitely switch up the colors you're using. I said definitely a lot. Sorry about that. You can go any direction you want to. As I mentioned, I'm linking to a video where I used rainbow colors for hexagons at the end. But I've really been inspired by more neutrals and kind of the yellows and things this month. And so I went ahead and stuck with that. When I'm feeling my mojo and I feel I'm really liking something, I go ahead and stick with that until that kind of goes away, I guess. I like to push myself out of my comfort zone. My comfort zone does tend to be a little bit more colorful. So I did try to find ways to add interest in color, even though this is a little bit more of that neutral with the yellows and browns. And I really love how these all turned out. Just to me, they're all very happy. Yellow is happy to me. Happiness and sunshine, and I think we can all use a little bit more of that right now. So I'm just going to continue adding color to these hexagons. You'll notice I'm taking a microfiber cloth and just buffing away any excess ink hanging out on top of the embossed areas. And then I'm laying my hexagons out on my card base. And this is kind of giving me an idea, how many more hexagons do I need? What do I want to do because I had no real plan other than kind of a general idea of how I wanted to put these guys down. I wanted it to be kind of organic. I'm not filling in the entire background. So we'll go ahead and die cut a couple more hexagons off camera because I had plenty of extra cardstock. I went ahead, when I stamped it, I did stamp the entire area of the background stamp, so it's nice and big, and I had plenty of design to choose from. I purposely picked a lot of area that had some bees in it, and because I just wanted to reinforce that bee theme. loving how that's working out. Now, before I get too excited about adhering anything, I think I want to stamp my sentiment because I'm going to pop up my hexagons with foam adhesive. It's just going to give the card a little bit more interest without adding a whole lot of extra. We're going to stamp that hello from Be the Queen. And then we're going to grab the bee trail from the Floral Love stamp set. I picked that bee trail over the one from Bee and Flowers Wreath for a reason. So you'll notice in hello, it's kind of a dashed line. In Floral Love, the little bee trail is a dashed line, so it's going to match really well. The bee trail in the Bee and Flowers Wreath is dotted. It's not dashed. You'll see that in my third card today, so you can really see the difference. But it's just little things like that that if you're paying attention to, I do think make a big difference in a finished card design. So I went with the one that matched my sentiment a little bit better. If I had not used that dashed line sentiment, I think that any of the other bee trail would have been just fine. I actually kind of like the design of that bee trail a little bit better, but this one worked really good, and it's nice and short, the one I ended up using from Floral Love, which works really nice on this card. We just have it in a couple of places coming in from the top and in from that left side. Then really carefully, I'm just going to start adhering all of these little guys with foam adhesive right to my card base. I tried to be super careful to not shift anything too much so that I could keep everything just kind of where I had laid it out to begin with. We're going to start with this big area. Make sure we're not covering up the hello. And I didn't get that one hexagon down very well. And when I pulled it up, it did tear the card a bit. So I'm just putting a little liquid glue on the back to pop it down, back down in place and not have to redo that hexagon at all. And once we get this area pretty well laid out, then we're going to do the one underneath hello. Again, really important important to get the placement where you want it so it's not covering up the sentiment. And then down in the lower left corner, we're just going to go ahead and pop up a couple here. I was really conscious of making sure some of the hexagons are hanging off the edge of the card. That way you can trim that off and it grounds the whole design instead of everything feeling like it's just floating out there in outer space. Same goes for those bee trails that we have coming in from the side and the top. That helps ground the design as well. So just like my first card, I decided to do some no line coloring, but we're going to use the bees from Be the Queen. I love these chubby little bees, and I like that they kind of have the more whimsical feel to them with cute little faces. Not so much the realistic bee, but more of a fun, type of image here. And I've stamped them with clear, Lawn Fawn Jellyfish ink, the no line coloring ink. And then we're coloring in with our same colors of Copic markers. I've stayed very consistent through all 6 cards I have created with the Hero Arts add-ons this month. And we have Warm Gray 6 and 8 and YR 31 and 23 for the bumblebees, the main body of the bumblebees. Their wings are BG 70 and 72, which is that nice, very, it's a blue-green, and I love that it's super light. BG 70 has a lot of colorless blender in it, so you aren't going to want to oversaturate your cardstock because you could bleed the color, but it's just so super light, and it looks fantastic, especially once we get these die cut from the cardstock. So we'll quickly color these in. I've got 3 of these little guys. We're going to have one little bee kind of coming up from the sentiment, and then we're going to have one at each of the little dotted bee trails, and we're going to pop them all up with foam adhesive. And I did zoom in, hopefully so you can see the coloring just a little bit better. I am going to color these guys for my last card as well. So if you missed any of that, hopefully we'll see a little bit more here in a minute. I think they're so cute, and their little faces. I did draw the faces, the stinger and the antenna back in with a black pen. Add that detail back in. I don't think the eyes show up super great. So once I have die cut these, I'm going to take a black jelly roll pen and go ahead and add those eyes back in then. So we just need to grab the coordinating dies. I like to line them up, hold them down in place with a little post-it tape, washi tape, whatever you like to use here. And then we're going to die cut them and add them to our card. And then, like I said, we're going to pop those up with foam adhesive, and we'll finish with a scattering of little black clay hearts, which I think add just a fun decorative element to our card. I felt like it needed just a little something. I think maybe even some gemstones in the center of some of those embossed resist flowers on the hexagons would be cute, or sequins or something like that. Just a little something. Here's that black jelly roll pen for the eyes, which helps their faces so much. And then I was just going to glue that one bumblebee directly to the hexagon since they're already popped up with foam adhesive, but I did not like it. So I popped him up before he dried, and we're just adding foam adhesive to the back. And then we'll put him back in place. And those bumblebees just round out the design perfectly. Little black clay hearts, as I mentioned, coming up from the sentiment in that little bumblebee that almost looks like he's tumbling back towards the greeting. My third and final card. I knew when I saw these infinity hexagon dies that they would make fantastic shakers. I love a good shaker card. I have not created one in a while, and it had been on my mind to create one for my first video with the add-ons this month, and I didn't get one made, so I was super excited to do one now. I have a panel of Lawn Fawn Sunflower cardstock that's trimmed to 4 by 5 1/4. We are going to stamp that in our MISTI with Lawn Fawn No. 2 pencil ink using the Abstract Honeycomb bold prints. So this is another new bold print from the January release. I'm using my MISTI so I can stamp it a couple times. I just want to make sure the impression is really good. I love this background. It's a mixture of different hexagon shapes. There's outlines and solid hexagons and hearts. So, so cute. Then from this background, we are going to die cut a bigger hexagon using an infinity die to make our shaker window. Everything on this card is centering around our shaker window. And we're going to build our little scene directly on the window. We're going to stamp our sentiment directly on the window. And there's only a little bee trail coming out from the window of the card. That's the only extra thing that's going to be happening somewhere other than the window of the card. And then we're just going to fill the shaker with some sequins and little like beads and things that are in a kind of bee mix. I think this mix is actually from Honeybee Stamps. I've had it for a long time. I don't know it's still available, but you could easily mix your own by mixing yellows and oranges and blacks and white sequins to create your own kind of mix. I've die cut my window from my background. And then I felt like it needed just a little inking to soften the design just a little bit. I thought I was going to save and use this hexagon on this card, and I ended up not. I think it's too busy for the background of my window, so I can use it on another card if I want to, or discard it, whatever you want to do there. I'm going to pop that out, and we'll go ahead and ink up the edges of the panel. Hey Hun from the Be the Queen stamp set right on a piece of acetate that I'm using to back my shaker window. Then I'm cleaning it with a little StazOn cleaner. The ink I used to stamp on the window was StazOn, white StazOn. I have white and black. Those are the only two StazOn colors I have, and I find that I probably use the white the majority of the time. But I love a sentiment directly on a shaker window. You could always stamp it down below if you don't have any StazOn ink as well. I think that would be super cute, maybe offset to one side or the other. Then I'm taking a blender brush and that, I think I'm not sure which ink. I think I used the number 2 pencil ink, the same ink I used to stamp the design. And I'm just inking around the window edge and the edge of the panel. And then it's time to stamp the images. So this card has quite a bit of coloring. We have a flower and bees from Be the Queen. And then the leaf image is actually from the Bee and Flowers Wreath stamp set. So I felt like I needed some extra greenery other than just the stem for this little individual flower. And there isn't one in Be the Queen, but there is in the Bee and Flowers Wreath. So I stamped all of these with the Jellyfish Lawn Fawn No Line Coloring ink. And then I'm coloring them in with Copic markers. The center of my flower is E57, YR 24 and 23. Then to let that kind of dry a minute, I moved on to the flower petals. The base is YR 30 and I'm pulling out YR 23 and then YR 31 from that center. Just giving them a hint of color. I don't want them to be super dark or anything like that, but the petals on the flower is one thing that I just didn't think a darker ink would look great on. So one of the reasons I chose to do a no line coloring ink. If I need definition at all, I'm going back in with YR31, which is really light, and adding some of that in. And then adding a little dot detail to the center of the flower with E57 and YR24. Let's do some greens for our leaves and then the stem with YG 93, 95, and 99. I didn't really love how my first leaf turned out, so I stamped a couple more to color in. Added in some green for the stem. And then I did the bumblebees just like the last card. I cut that out of the video to save us a little time. We're feathering, I kind of traced in with YG 93 for the leaf. And then from the bottom, I start with YG 99 with a feathering technique and go over that with YG 95. Then we're going to grab all the coordinating dies from the Bee and Flowers Wreath and Be the Queen, and we're going to die cut everything for our card and build a cute little scene right on the window of our shaker. So we just want to get everything die cut there. Now before I adhere too much, I want to stamp my bumblebee trail that's coming in from the side of the card. And part of it is on the window and part of it is going to be on the card base. I stamped it with StazOn ink first just to see how well that StazOn would do on the cardstock so that I'd have those little dots on the window. I probably could have eliminated that altogether. I don't know how much of it actually shows up, but I did stamp that first and I wanted to leave that in there just so you could kind of see what my process was. I think I did not keep it, or did not do this in the video, and I haven't done it yet. But I think I should take a white pen and add in the dots over the frame that I end up adding to this, just because I feel like it kind of cuts it off a little bit, but I can do that off camera. I just want to make mention of it here because it is something that bothers me in real life. So anyway, after I've stamped it, I'm going to clean the StazOn ink off. And then we're going to just stamp it with a clear embossing ink, the embossing and watermark ink, and heat emboss that with white embossing powder. And then build our cutie pie little scene right on the window, which is my favorite part of this card, and fill a cute little shaker with all the goodies inside to finish it off. Shaker cards are just so much fun and so easy to create. And like I said, I haven't done one in a little while, so it was really super fun to revisit one of my favorite interactive card techniques. Off camera, I have backed my entire panel and I shortened the window, you can see here, so it doesn't move all the way down to the bottom, with foam adhesive. I did do 2 layers of foam adhesive so that the shaker material has plenty of room to move around. I'm going to back the whole shaker with another piece of 4 by 5 1/4 cardstock. This is the sunflower cardstock. And then I did only remove part of the foam adhesive. You can see I folded some of it back. That helps for lining it up, and then when you're sure your panel is where you want it to go, you can pull out the rest. And there is the cute little shaker. How much fun is that, you guys? I just love it. We're going to take the next size hexagon up and the one we used for the window and die cut those together from some slate gray cardstock to make a little frame, and then we're simply just going to slide that right on to our card front to help frame up the fact that that hexagon is a window. And like I said, I am going to take a white pen and add in some detail there. I didn't notice it really until we got to the voiceover, that I really think that we need to just add those back in. Anyway, so much fun. I hope you guys were inspired to create even more bee-themed cards with the products from the Hero Arts January 2021 My Monthly Hero release. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring bee-themed cards that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.